for about 40 minutes about, spoiler alert, outer order, inner calm, and then we're going to have time for questions, and that's always my favorite part, and I cannot wait to hear your questions and observations, so be thinking of your questions. Now, sometimes people ask me, what is my subject? And my subject is human nature. I'm interested in who we are. Why do we do what we do? How can we change if we want to change? And so for years, I've been reading and writing and talking to people about human nature. And something kept surprising me. I'd be talking to people about things that really matter, like how do we connect more deeply with the people that we love? Or how do we eat more healthfully? How do we make more time to read? How do we know ourselves better? And people would be very interested and very engaged. But then the subject would turn to order, decluttering, organizing, and people would get fired up. Like, there's just an emotional charge to this that surprised me. For instance, okay, I'm gonna ask this question. How many people here make their beds every day? Yeah, right? How many people here regularly make their beds in a hotel room on the morning they check out? Yes! We know, yeah. But there's just something about questions like this that gets people emotionally charged. There's something to it that seems disproportionate. Because, you could say having a crowded coat closet or having a messy desk, isn't the most significant thing in having a happy life. And yet, over and over, people tell me, and it's certainly how I feel, that getting control of the stuff of our lives really does make us feel more in control of our lives generally. Now, it is true that not everybody feels this way. How many people here have listened to the Happier with Gretchen Rubin podcast? Oh yeah, a lot of people. Good, excellent. Well, you've heard me talk about this with my sister, Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is truly colorblind. She is one of these people who does not see it. It does not drain her. It does not overwhelm her. She doesn't see it. She would not close a kitchen cabinet door for the rest of her life if she did not live with other people. But she does live with other people. And the fact is, for most people, outer order does contribute to a sense of inner calm. And more than that, a sense of energy and focus and even possibility. I had a friend telling me, I finally cleaned my fridge, and now I know I can switch careers. And I'm like, yes, I know exactly how that feels. And so what are the reasons for this? I mean, you know the reasons for this. I mean, first of all, life is just simpler and easier when we've created outer order. I mean, recent research shows that the average American adult spends 55 minutes a day looking for misplaced items. So when people create outer order, they find it easier to put things away, to find things. They don't run out for duplicates because they can't find a tape measure, even though they know perfectly well they have a tape measure. Life is just easier and freer. And creating outer order gets rid of a lot of bad feelings, The bad feeling like, oh, I spent too much on this, so I should wear it, but I don't wear it, but I could wear it, but I don't wear it. And I kind of try to use it up by just keeping it in my closet for 5 or 10 years, and then I feel like, okay, now it's okay to get rid of it. Or the unfinished project, like the 1,000-piece puzzle that I'm only 50 pieces into. Or the fantasy self. I myself only recently got rid of a pair of leather pants. I mean, what was I thinking? What? No. Get them off my shelves and off my conscience. And here's something that I find very surprising. I bet many, many of you have experienced this, have witnessed this yourself. That when people create outer order, they're more engaged with the things they have. Now, my sister Elizabeth calls me a happiness bully because if I think there's an opportunity for you to be happier, I can get a little insistent about that. And one of the things I do is I beg friends to let me come over and clear their clutter. Because for me, it's like the contact high of clearing clutter, but none of the emotional, uneasiness of when you're dealing with your own stuff. So it's so fun. So I've had the experience over and over where, I'll help somebody go through their clothes closet, and we will take out 2 big bags, 3 big bags of stuff to give away. And inevitably the person walks over to the closet, gazes inside, and says, now I feel like I have so much more to wear. Right? I see nodding. Right? Objectively, this isn't true. There's less there. But the feeling of abundance has grown. Because when we know what we have, when we see what we have, when we want what we have, we feel like life is more abundant. And it's so easy to lose that connection with our own possession. I mean, so sometimes I help my husband's pretty orderly, but he needs a little bit of nudging. And so we were going through his closet, and I was holding up things, one in each hand, like, do you want to keep it or do you want to get rid of it? And I held up one pair of pants, and he said to me, I have never seen that pair of pants before in my life. And I'm like, it's taking up room in your closet. I guess somebody snuck in here and put it in here one night, because here they are. He didn't even know they were there. So there's this greater feeling of abundance that comes. And then there is something that is really much more profound about creating outer order. Because some people don't want to think about outer order because they think it's selfish or self-centered. They say, with everything going on in the world today, is this really what we're going to talk about? This is trivial. This is a distraction. And yet research shows, and I think common experience confirms, that actually when we take the time to make ourselves calmer and more energized and to increase our self-command, that is when we have the ability to turn outward and to think about the problems of other people and the problems of the world. And so sometimes by tackling these very near concrete tasks, we really enable ourselves to tackle much more challenging problems beyond our reach. It's important, I think, though, to recognize how different people are. There is no magic one-size-fits-all solution. And I see this with everything related to happiness. So many people want to say, like, here's the answer, this is the best way, this is the right way, this is the most efficient way, this way will make you most creative. But there is no magic one-size-fits-all solution because people are really different. We have different challenges, we have different habits, we have different temperaments. We want to end up in different places. So we really have to suit it to ourselves if we want to be able to create it and maintain it over the long term. So what I'm going to talk about is the things that, in my experience, are the questions that people ask the most, and the strategies, the tips, the approaches that have worked the most for people. And I would love to, if I could, I would interview each one of you to hear what you've experienced in your own practice. But this is what I found. The first thing is always, people get this kind of scared look in their eye, and they're like, okay, where do I start? How do I start? And I always say, well, I'll tell you where not to start. Don't get organized, right? Because people are like, I'm going to get organized. The first thing they want to do is run out to the Container Store or Staples and buy weird hangers and complicated containers, binders. What is it about people and their binders? Filing cabinets. And what I found is when you get rid of everything that is just clogging up the system, a lot of times you don't need to get organized. You just put that thing down. You don't need a filing cabinet if you've just got 3 pieces of paper in a manila folder that you put in the top drawer. I was talking to a guy just the other day, and he was saying how he had these big plans for how he was going to take all his paperwork and he was going to put it in chronological order in binders. Yeah, there we go, the binders. Put it in binders. And then it occurred to him that it was all related to pet insurance. And he didn't actually need all the paperwork related to pet insurance because it was online. So it's don't organize it, just get rid of it, and then, problem solved. But then this leads to the question, which is a very important question, which is, how do you decide what to hang on and what to relinquish? Because we need to have some kind of heuristic. How do we think about it? And you hear many, many different ideas of how do you think about what you keep and what you get rid of? For me, I think the most helpful question is, do I need it, do I use it, do I love it? Because if I don't need it, use it, or love it, then why am I hanging on to it? Now, the thing about do you love it, now that you've got to keep within reason. You can't love everything. But I will give you an example of the kind of thing that I decided, I'm just going to keep this because I love it. Do you remember years and years ago how there was this fad of the magic eye? This was these posters that if you kind of blurred your eyes and went in and out, something like a 3D thing would pop out at you. For some reason, I found this absolutely fascinating, and I got this book of postcards, Magic Eye postcards. I do not send these postcards because I want to keep them. And every 3 to 5 years, I take them out and I'm woo, woo, remind myself of how to do it. Do I need this? No. Do I use this? Not much. But do I love it? Oh, I love it. So I feel there's room in my heart and my home for something like that. And then the things that I use when I need, maybe I don't have a particular emotional reaction to this pair of scissors, but it does its little job well, so I'll just hang on to these. You know, do I need it? Do I use it? Do I love it? And then the things that you don't need, don't use, don't love. That's like the rice cooker that was like, it was a good idea as a birthday present for my husband, but like he's never made rice in it. It's been 5 years, so like I think we can let that thing go. Let it go and live with somebody who will cook rice in it. And here's a funny test that is for clothes that people seem to really find useful, which is to consider the X factor. This is, you imagine yourself wearing an item of clothing and you run into your ex on the street and you think, would I be happy that I was wearing this item of clothing or not so much? And then it gives you an idea of whether or not you should hang on to something. But the thing about clutter and outer order is that there's a faster, easier, cheaper way to create outer order. You know what I'm going to say? Never let it in the first place. If you keep it out, you don't have to manage it. Because things that seem free or like big bargains often end up costing us a lot of time, energy, or money because we have to figure out what to do with them. So there's a certain kind of clutter, I'm sure you've seen. It's kind of, I would call it like anticipatory clutter or preparatory clutter. These are the folks who are like, this would make a great birthday present for someone. I don't know anybody who has a birthday coming up, but I feel like I'm going to go ahead and get this right now. I'm just going to hang on to it. And so for that kind of person, I think, you can store it at the store. You can let them hang on to that for you. They'll put it away very nicely. And then when you feel like you need it, you can go get it. But for now, you just leave it there. Because you don't need to bring it into your home yet, because a lot of times that stuff ends up not being used or getting lost track of or whatever. And then there is the ever-growing problem of impulse shopping online. It's 11 o'clock, you've had a glass of wine, click, 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 and now you have something you don't need, use or love. You may not even remember that you ordered it when it shows up the next day. So what do you do about that? Something very easy. Delete your accounts so that you have to shop as a guest. So this means you have to enter your billing, credit card, and shipping information every time you order something. This is not an insurmountable hurdle. If there's something you really need or use, or really want, you can get it. But a lot of times, for many people, this is just like becomes like, I can't deal with it. Same thing if you're in a store, don't take a basket or a cart. Same thing, it makes it just that much more inconvenient, and so it just doesn't seem worth it because you're really not that committed. And with an impulse purchase, it comes and it goes. And the other thing is to be very careful of freebies, conference swag, bargains, and hand-me-downs. You know, because this stuff feels fun and it's free and you want to take it, but then you got to deal with it. For me, the temptation is tote bags. I cannot resist a tote bag. I have had hundreds of tote bags in my life. How many tote bags can one family use? Not as many as I have, I will tell you that. And even like just the other day, I was in the Plano, Texas library. I was trying to give me a tote bag, and it took every ounce of my strength to resist. And I don't think I would have, except the person I was with was like, ooh, if you don't want that tote bag, I'll take it. I was like, please take it now. Like, save me from myself, because I cannot resist a tote bag. But there are these things that feel free, but then you got to deal with them. Like, yeah, it's cute, this cow-shaped pencil sharpener that you got, but like, what are you going to do with it now? You can't just throw it away. It's too good. You can't give it away. Nobody wants it. You don't even have pencils in your house anymore. Like, what are you going to do with this thing? Like, resist. Now, sometimes people, and maybe you hear this, people say, I don't want to create outer order. I don't want to clear clutter because I don't want to contribute to the landfill. But the sad truth is we contribute to the landfill the minute we reach out for that thing. Because it might be that the cow-shaped pencil sharpener is going to the landfill tomorrow. Or maybe that cow-shaped pencil sharpener is going to wait until my children do a Swedish death cleaning after I die in 40 years. But one way or another, it's going to the landfill. And so the way to keep things out of the landfill is not to take them in the first place. Something that people often ask me is like, how do I deal with this, creating outer order, maintaining outer order when I'm so busy? Like, I just don't have any time. I can't take the time. I can't take the energy. I'm overwhelmed, and it needs to be part of my ordinary day, or I just can't do it. Now, it's definitely easier to keep up than to catch up. And a lot of times you need someone to help you catch up. You know, like it's people who maybe are pretty orderly and normally, but they moved and had a baby at the same time, or they, you know, they had twins, or something happened and they got behind and they could never catch up. So it's easier to keep up than to catch up. So what are the things, once you've created it, how do you maintain it? Because, you know, it's no fun to like make some extraordinary effort to clean out a kitchen and then a week later it's as if nothing had ever happened. So a couple little habits that are very manageable for even the busiest person, I think, is one is the 1 minute rule. Anything you can do in less than a minute, you do without delay. If you can hang up a coat instead of throwing it on a chair, if you can rip open a letter, scan it, see that it's nothing that you need to keep and put it in recycling. And this just gets rid of that kind of scum of clutter on the surface of everyday life. These are small tasks, but they're overwhelming for us as we go. But even the busiest person can do it because it's just 1 minute at a time, less than a minute. And similarly is power hour. You know, things that can be done at any time are often done at no time. And this is like, okay, I need to get a new heel put on this pair of shoes, so I'm going to put them right here on the kitchen counter next to the coffee machine, because that's where I won't forget to take them to the shoe place. A week goes by, a month goes by, like, why am I going to go to the shoe place? Power hour is a way to do it, to make time to do it, because we often overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time, like an afternoon or a weekend, and we underestimate what we can get done over the long term if we did a little bit over the long term consistently. So something like power hour is like the 1 minute rule, where it just gets these things done in a manageable time so that even a busy person can I think that they would do it, and yet it feels realistic. But earlier I was saying how I thought that we each had to do it in the way that was right for us. And I think something that's helpful is to think about, for ourselves and for other people, how we might be alike and different. Because we really are very different from each other. So we have different challenges, and we want to end up in different places. And one thing to ask is, are you an underbuyer or an overbuyer? Because they have different challenges when it comes to outer order. So overbuyers are people who like to buy. They like to shop, they like to get things done. They will often like, oh, you know, summer's coming, or I'm going on a trip, and they will buy everything that they could possibly need. They'll buy a lot of things, slow-moving items like tubes of toothpaste or canned soup. And you can see how this would contribute to clutter, because they've got all this stuff, they've got to manage it, they've got to keep track of it. So those are overbuyers. But then there are underbuyers, who are people like me. We don't like to shop. We don't like to buy. We don't like specialized products. I only recently became comfortable with facial tissue, because I kept thinking, why don't you just blow your nose in toilet paper? We don't need something special for this. I don't believe it's hair conditioner. Like, what is up with that? So those are underbuyers. Now you might think that underbuyers would not have a problem with clutter, right? Because they don't like to bring things in. No, that's the root of the problem. Because for underbuyers, the idea of needing to go out and get something is so loathsome that they will hang on to things forever. You know, oh, this is an electric blue sweater that somebody gave me. I never liked it. I've never worn it, but I better hang on to it because the day could come when I would need an electric blue sweater, and then what would I do? So underbuyers, we have to remind ourselves that we can let things go. And then there are simplicity lovers and abundance lovers. And abundance lovers like choice and profusion and collections and buzz and a lot going on and piles with unexpected juxtapositions. And simplicity lovers like bare counters and a lot of room on the shelf and not much going on. You know, it's one little vase with one little rosebud. Now, how many people here are simplicity lovers? Oh, how many people here are abundance lovers? There's a good number of abundance lovers. Okay, but most are simplicity lovers, because this is the kind of thing that appeals to people who like simplicity. It's all about, you know, getting things cleared out. But here's the thing. It's fine when we understand that these are preferences. The problem arises when I'm your boss and I say, a cluttered desk means a cluttered mind. We're going to have a clear desk policy at this office. Well, that's true for me. That doesn't mean it's necessarily true for you. So we have to remember that people want to end up at different places. As a simplicity lover, to me, something can be beautiful emptiness. But to someone else, it looks sterile and stripped. You know, a place that I thought was very beautiful, a friend of mine walked in and she goes, this looks like a timeshare apartment. Who lives here? I'm like, I love it, you know? So we want to get to different places, so we have to respect that about each other. I remember, because I was trying to help another friend clear clutter, and she said to me very apprehensively, I feel like you're going to try to get me to give up too much of my clothes. And I said, hey, look, I know you. You don't want a capsule wardrobe. Some people do, not you. So we have to recognize that people want to get to different places. Now I'm going to talk about the Four Tendencies, which is a personality profile that I came up with, which helps explain a lot about people. It comes up a lot when people are trying to create outer order, or when they're trying to get other people to create outer order. So I'm going to go into it in a little bit of depth, because I think it'll be very interesting to see who's in the audience and to think about how it might apply here. I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to have you raise your hand so that we can see who's in the audience, because I think that'll be really interesting to see. If most people can tell what they are just from this brief explanation, if you do want to take a test that will tell you what you are, if you go to GretchenRubin.com/quiz, you can take it. It's free. It's quick. I think 2 million people now have taken this quiz. But like I said, a lot of times people don't even need to take the quiz, because it's very obvious what you are and what a lot of the people around you are once you hear the definition. So here we go. And the Four Tendencies is whether you are an upholder, a questioner, an obliger, or a rebel. And this will have a lot of significance in how you might approach outer order. So upholder, questioner, obliger, rebel. And this has to do with how you respond to expectations, which sounds very boring, I know, but stay with me, I promise you this gets juicy. Okay, so we all face two kinds of expectations. Outer order, outer expectations, which is like a work deadline or request from a friend. And then there are inner expectations, my own desire to keep a New Year's resolution, my own desire to get back into practicing meditation. And how you respond to outer and inner expectations, that's what determines whether you're an upholder, questioner, obliger, rebel. Okay, so here it is. First, upholders. Upholders readily meet outer and inner expectations. They meet the work deadline, they keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. They want to know what's expected of them, but their expectations for themselves are just as important. Next, questioners. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do it if they think it makes sense. They resist anything arbitrary, anything ineffective, anything unjustified. They always want to know why. So they're making everything an inner expectation. If it meets their inner standard, they'll do it no problem. If it fails their inner standard, they will push back. Then there are obligers. Obligers, oh, there we go. Give it up for obligers. Obligers, as somebody said to me, I'm an obliger all day long. Obligers readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. And I got my insight into this tendency when a friend said, I don't understand it. I know I'm happier when I exercise. And when I was in high school, I was on the track team, and I never missed track practice. So why can't I go running now? Because she's an obliger. When she had a team and a coach expecting her to show up, no problem. When she was just trying to do it on her own, she struggles. And then finally, rebels. Rebels resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. They want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do. They can do anything they choose to do. But if you ask or tell them to do something, they're very likely to resist. Typically, they don't even like to tell themselves what to do. Like, they won't sign up for a 10 a.m. Saturday spin class because they don't know what they want to do on Saturday morning. And just the fact that somebody's expecting them to show up is going to bug them. So these are the four: upholder, questioner, obliger, rebel. So now raise your hand if you're an upholder. Upholders readily meet outer and inner expectation. The motto of the upholder is discipline is my freedom. Okay. Next, questioners. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do something if they think it makes sense. Their motto is, I'll comply if you convince me why. Okay? Yeah. Next is obligers. Obligers readily meet outer. They struggle to meet inner. Their motto is, you can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. Okay. And then finally, rebels. Rebels resist all expectations. There we go. So rebels often sit in the front of the back row. I don't know what that is. So the motto of the rebel is, you can't make me, and neither can I. So this is interesting. We had quite a few more upholders than you would typically see in an audience. So the biggest in the world, the biggest tendency for both men and women, the biggest tendency is obliger. You either are an obliger or many obligers in your life. After that, questioner. We didn't have as many questioners here as we have upholders. The smallest tendency, the most conspicuous tendency, is the rebel tendency. And we have rebels here. But upholder is only slightly larger. That's my tendency. And usually that's very small. There's a lot of upholders here. You can always tell upholders because they're the ones that, if you get a couple of upholders together, they start saying things like, why is it that other people can't get anything done? I remember when I, because there aren't that many upholders in the world, usually. I remember I went to my husband when I came up with this framework, and I said to him, oh my God, you know what? I am part of like an extreme fringe personality type. And he said, you think? He was not surprised. So how might this come up in the context of trying to create outer order either for ourselves or for other people? Well, you can think about it, because for upholders it comes pretty naturally. Because anything works for upholders. That's the thing about any strategy, any curriculum, any app, anything is going to work for some people because upholders are the kind of people for whom that kind of thing works. Like, they can make a to-do list, fine. Or they can not have a to-do list. They can have accountability, or they don't need accountability. They can use a calendar. They can do anything. They can, oh, I want to use this app. Okay, fine. You know, so upholders are not really the problem because anything that they decide to do is going to work pretty well for them. But questioners are the people who say things like, why should we make the bed when we just unmake it every night? Or like you say something like, let's clean out the basement this weekend. And they say, why do we have to do it this weekend? Why are we cleaning out the basement? We never use it anyway. You know, like, I don't understand. What's the point? You know, and you're like, okay. So questioners need to have justification. They need data. They need reasons. Why are we, yeah, there we go. You run into this. Yeah. So questioners are like, why are we doing it now? Why are we doing this way? Why does this matter? So they need things like productivity studies. Research shows that knowledge workers who eliminate paperwork or, they respond very well to that. They just want to know why. They can get with the program, but they have to have a reason. They don't like anything arbitrary. Many questionnaires object to things like 5 garments to a dressing room. Why? Yeah. Why not? You know, and so this is for questioners. And so when you're talking to a questioner, you have to explain why. Why are we doing it this way? They need to know your reasons. They have to trust your authority and your judgment. And they also love to have things customized. They like to tailor things for themselves. So any kind of hacking, any kind of like, often we do this, but I think this would work better for you. They're very receptive to. Or the idea like, let's just try this as an experiment. And if this doesn't work for you, that's fine. We'll move on to the next thing. We've learned something because this experiment didn't work. That's a data point. Now we'll try something completely different. They need to have that reason. Just because I say so, because this is what they say to do, corporate says to do it this way, it's totally illegitimate for them. They need reasons. Obligers, by contrast, need outer accountability. This is probably the biggest idea from the Four Tendencies. If you're an obliger, or you're dealing with an obliger, who readily meets outer expectations but is struggling to meet inner expectations, which they are, because that's the definition of an obliger, they must have outer accountability. Now, sometimes people want to talk about taking time for self-care, learning to put yourself first, getting in tune with your priorities. This does not work with obligers. I'm not saying it shouldn't work, I'm just saying it does not work. What they need is outer accountability. You want to read more? Join a book group. That's what works. Outer accountability. And I think often people hire professionals to be their accountability partners. Maybe you're just sitting there going, Well, they're like, now I'm gonna look at this, now I'm gonna look at this. And you're like, why am I here? You could do this on your own. Because they need accountability. They need somebody who's watching them, who knows that it's gonna be done, and who is going to hold them to it. Not a friend who's gonna be like, oh no, you've been under so much pressure. I think we should just catch up on Russian doll. No, we need somebody who's gonna be like, no, you gotta do this now. And in the end, you're gonna be happier for it. You're gonna feel calmer. You're gonna feel more energetic. Your life is gonna be easier. And I'm here to help take you through that process. Partly I might be adding expertise and ideas, and partly I'm here to hold you to it, to help you get done what you want to get done. I'm the outer accountability for the inner expectation. And so, the thing that's interesting is sometimes upholders, questioners, and rebels don't want to play that role. We'll say things like, I don't need to be your babysitter. You just need to get clear on what you want. Once you know where your priorities are, you'll do it. No, this does not work for obligers. They need outer accountability. Often people don't realize they need outer accountability. If someone is asking for accountability, it's because they need it. Don't tell them they don't need it. I used to make this mistake as an upholder. I'm like, you do your work in your own way, I'm going to do my work in my own way, and then nobody has to worry about what anybody else is doing. This doesn't work for obligers. They respond very well to things like deadlines, having people over, anything like that. Any kind of outer accountability is what works for obligers. Now, what about rebels? So this is an issue because you get somebody to do what you want, whether you're the rebel or you're dealing with a rebel, who, if you ask or tell them to do something, is very likely to resist. How do you get them to do it? Well, one thing is identity, because identity is so important to rebels. If you remind them that this is part of their identity, this is what they want, this is how they like it, then they will do it, because they're not doing it because they're supposed to. They're not doing it because their mother-in-law is coming over. They're not doing it because they're having company. They're not doing it because they said they would. They're doing it because this is what they like. This is how they want it. And the more they can tap into that desire, the more easily they're going to cooperate. Or you can talk about information consequences choice, which is something that rebels are very familiar with. It's like, you've got this room in your house and it's just sort of a junk room where everything's being dumped into it. I mean, you can leave it like that, or I know that music is something that's really important to you. You could kind of turn it into a music room. You could play instruments there, you could have your album, your old album collection, your vinyl collection there, or maybe it's a reading room, or maybe it's a meditation room, or maybe you just want empty space. It's the information of the consequences choice. If you do this, then this is what you get. But here's the thing about rebels that's really important. They don't like to be locked into calendars. This can be a big problem if, you need to make an appointment with somebody, because it's like the very fact that there's an appointment they want to resist. So as much as you can, you want to acknowledge their inherent desire for spontaneity. If they want to do something, if they're on their own and they want to do something at 2 a.m., do never try to talk them out of it. And understand how difficult it is for them to want to lock into a particular date. So you want to make sure not to emphasize that we're committed, or there's no flexibility. You always want to use language of this still works for you. To make sure that you emphasize the idea that this is what they want, this is what they choose, because you don't want to ignite that spirit of resistance. And the final question that comes up all the time, and then we'll have time for questions, is something that I'm sure you hear very often. And this is the question when someone says, I am the neat one. That is the messy one. How do you make that person be more neat? But the sad fact of everything and happiness and all related subjects is the only person that we can change is ourselves. And as tempting as it is to think, I would be happier if this person would behave properly and hand them a big list of demands, we don't get to do that. We don't get to hand out homework. But the fact is, when I change, a relationship changes. And when I change, the atmosphere of my household or my office changes. And so sometimes you can make bigger changes by changing yourself. So to set the stage for my answer to this question, and because I love this story, I have to say, I want to tell the story of Mike. Just recently happened in my life. So Mike is a guy I've known for many, many years. I know his wife a little bit, but I know Mike much better. So Mike and his wife both work in New York City. They have a big house in the suburbs. They have children ages 6 and 3, so they are in the season of stuff. And Mike is the neat one, and his wife is the messy one. And I've known this about him for years, because he'll say things like, when I'm home with the kids all day, the house is neat as a pin. My wife is home with the kids all day, I come home, the house is a wreck. This kind of thing. So I was, because I am a happiness bully, I was talking to Mike about outer order and all related subjects fairly recently. And he was saying to me, okay, it just continues to make me really annoyed. And I said, well, how does it come up with you and your wife? And he said, well, here's an example. There'll be these household administrative tasks that she wants me to do. And, I come home from work, and whatever, and I'm sitting down at the kitchen table, and I start to do them, but it's so messy in there that I have to spend 45 minutes getting everything put away. And then I don't feel like doing the tasks that she wants me to do, and so then we fight. And I said, okay, well, are you at the kitchen table because you want to be in the center of the action? Because some people are like that. They want to be like in the thick of things. He said, no, it's not really about that for me. And I said, well, here's the thing. Could you find a desk somewhere in your house, or like the corner of a room, where you could really carve out that space, create that focus, maintain the outer order the way you need it to do, and get everybody in your house to agree that they won't mess with it. So it's always that way when you want it, and so you could go there to do the administrative tasks. And he looks at me kind of puzzled, and he said, well, I have an office. And I said, well, Mike, why don't you use your office? And he said, because it's too messy. So you know where I'm going with this, and Mike knew where I was going with this pretty quick too. And so, you know, and the thing is, he is really quite neat. And so just in talking about it, just talking about the office, he got very, very fired up. And indeed, that weekend, he sent me a before and after video. He spent 5 hours cleaning out his home office. He pulled out 3 big bags of stuff. He moved things all around his house. He moved a chair in there, so he had just the kind of place where he liked to sit to work on his laptop. It was great. So the next week, we're talking, and he's telling me about his office. I was like, so how's it working out? He goes, it's not exactly where I want it to be, but it's so much closer. I'm very, very close to having it exactly right. And I said, well, what's the missing part? Like, what's still nagging at you? He said, well, my winter coat is always on the floor. Okay, Mike, why is your winter coat always on the floor? He said, well, because my wife keeps the coat closet by the front door so full of her stuff, there's no room for my coat. So I'm supposed to hang my coat in the bedroom on the 2nd floor, and I just don't get around to it, so instead I throw it on the floor of my office. I said, okay, well, how big is the closet? Because how big is it? She said it was like that big. Like, that's not that big of a coat closet. For a woman that she really likes clothes, I'm like, I can kind of see how she could get it filled, you know, with like actual clothes, coats that she wears. And I said to him, well, here's the thing, Mike, I'm kind of on your side. I do think it's unrealistic to think that somebody, you know, we live in New York, people are putting their coats on and off all day long. I think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go up to the 2nd floor bedroom closet to hang up your coat. So I said, so what do you think? Could you hang a hook in your garage? So that, yeah, it's not maybe as handy as the coat closet, but you know, you're going out to your car, you're going for a walk around the neighborhood, it's right there, it's very, much more easily within your reach. And he looks at me kind of puzzled and he said, well, we have a mudroom. And I said, okay, Mike, why don't you use the mudroom? And he said, because it's too messy. So what is the answer to the question? The answer to the question is create outer order yourself first. When you are pointing the finger, you know, it's that whole thing, like all the other fingers are pointing back at you. Clear your own clutter. Create outer order within what is within your own control. And many things happen from that. Because we can't control other people, but there are some things that we can control. And if we create outer order, if we truly searchingly and honestly look at our own stuff and create outer order, for one thing, new possibilities might arise. Like, maybe you can use your office if you clean out your office. So sometimes there's new possibilities. Sometimes the messy people get kind of swept up in it. Not always, but sometimes they do. Or it's certainly easier for them to maintain some kind of order when things are cleared out, when there's more room, when there's more space. But importantly too, I think that when we have outer order ourselves, we have more compassion for the messy ones. And we have more tolerance for their mess. Because when we have outer order with what we can control, certainly the office, also the mudroom too, then there's more room for other people to do it a different way. It's not what we would like, but maybe we have more tolerance for it because we have the outer order that we want. And also, you know, sometimes our order, what we have doesn't feel as bad as theirs. It's like, okay, yeah, I've been working on a scrapbook on this table for 6 months, but you left crumbs out on the kitchen counter, and we can't live like that. You know, when we have outer order within our own control, then we do feel a lot better about the world, generally. And the last thing I would say, and I certainly don't need to say it to this group because I know that you are so with me, But I really do believe, and having looked at so many people and so many issues, so many happiness stumbling blocks, so many challenges that people face, that for just about everyone, it really is worth taking the time and the energy to think about ways to create out of order, because it really can help us to create the happier, healthier, more productive, and more creative lives that we all yearn for. So thank you so much, and I'd love to talk to you about your topic.